Hey guys, back with the live execution series, and today I'll be covering some NQ longs that I took today, and more importantly, I'm going to be going over what makes my setup an A plus setup versus a B setup. Now, let's get straight into it. So, first of all, we're going to be looking at what kind of news did we have. So, we had 815 red folder, 830 red folder. So, 830 is usually going to be the more important one, and that's because that's when the actual news embargo goes down where all news can come by. And so typically at this time, you're going to see some kind of data high or data low. Not all the time, but most of the time. And then we also had 10 a.m., believe it's PCE. So that's not too crazy, but that 8:30 GDP is going to be important. Going into the session, we had quite a big sell-off. So Asia session kind of consolidated, London kind of consolidated, and then we had our expansion early New York AM. Not very typical, but because of this, I wasn't very interested in taking longs at this time during the New York AM session. What I was going to focus on is the later session. So we also retraced the entire range. So we accumulated Monday, Tuesday, and then we had that retracement. So that's going to make a midweek low a day. So that's not super common, but if we're trading below those days, so Monday, Tuesday, and we're sitting inside of a bullish PD array and we're starting to pull back, then we know that we're probably going to have that weekly profile. So in terms of what we had in the New York game session, so I know I said I didn't trade during that session because I didn't, but there was a pretty decent setup, and that was in here. So we had this 5-minute inversion. Now, as you know, with inversions, at least the way that I trade them, you don't have to wait for a total retracement into the inversion, because we know that when we enter, we're going to have these highs that are going to be vulnerable. So that means we're positioning ourselves good either way if we're kind of below that high, which we are. So we don't have to wait for a total retracement right there. And so, like I mentioned, 8:30, we had that data high wick. We had some other buy side, but in that moment, like, that's not what I was focused on. I don't think a lot of people were really focused on that because no one really knows if we're going to pull up into this data high and just dump off. Like, sure, you could have a runner on, but I'm doubtful that most people would have a full position on until that entire buy side was taken. Because it's not common that you get a whole sell side manipulation and then we completely expand towards the other side. That's what, about 700 points from this low to this high. That's a whole 3%. Like, it's not likely. So personally, I wasn't looking for these highs. I mean, I am bullish on the week still. I was still bullish, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna hold my trade all the way into these London highs and New York PM session highs. Just to mention that. So anyways, this would have been a great entry, and I'll show you the video right now where I entered. But we started getting a little choppy in here, and then we retrace into this 30-minute gap. This is where I started looking for plays. This is where I sent out my actual analysis right here. Hey guys, looking for this data high. I'd already taken a short right here, which was a win. So I was thinking we're going to retrace. We're going to take all of this low resistance liquidity right here. We're going to retrace to that 30-minute, and then we're going to blast off. And that is, in fact, what happens, but I'll show you guys the setup. So right here, we have these two bearish fair value gaps. Now we're going to invert them, and what that's going to do for us is these highs, they're going to become vulnerable. So let's see my entry. We also had a 5-minute gap, but because of how good of an entry this was, we're manipulating below lows. We have this internal high, we have another internal high, and then we have a data high. And you'll be able to see that right now. So that's my entry inverted right there. So right here, I could show you guys, I have an internal high, another internal high. This looks pretty low resistance right here. And yeah, just overall, this is a really good setup. Coming into that hour, see how the hour looks. So we retrace, we take that previous hourly low, still respecting the 30-minute, and then we just expand higher. So that's going to look like this. So gets a little choppy here. I'm not freaking out. Have my wrist pretty tight. Then I'm looking at this for value gap. If we could invert this, then pretty much guaranteed we're going to run through this data high. Sure enough, that's it. Very easy trade. I was trying to get long previously into here. I ended up taking a break even, and then I just waited for that retracement, and I stuck it out to my bias, and it worked out overall. Now, in terms of what else happened, we kind of hung out in here for a while. Like I said, like, I don't think that many people are catching this trade. Like, it's all consolidation, and then all of a sudden we get this run up move. I'm assuming some kind of news, or it was just something premeditated to happen. But overall, that's a good setup. You don't need to hit home runs all the time. You could have either gotten long in here, took a 1 to 4, or this setup right here, which was about 1 to 4 as well. So almost similar concept. If you're taking the same risk, you're going to have the same result. Going over our rating system, there's going to be 5 things that I consider when I'm looking at my setups. Now, right here's my list. It's going to be delivery, entry, confluence, then draw and speed. So for my first setup in the New York AM session, that's going to be a 4-hour delivery, because we take out all this sell side and then we deliver from this 4-hour fair value gap. That was our delivery. So our entry is going to be this 5-minute inversion fair value gap. Then our third factor is going to be our confluence. So that could be SMT. That could be these internal low resistance liquidity run right here, these highs that are all stacked up. And then we're also going to have, what is our draw? So that could be equal highs, equal lows. Right here, targeting this data high. And then minimal chop. So sometimes you'll sit inside of a fair value gap and it takes forever to invert, right? We're just looking at this from a very objective standpoint, and we're going to rate our setup. Whether it was a bad setup or a good setup, we're not going to hold our ego too high and lie what it is. Like, when you're journaling this, you want to be honest so that you could get better. And in my opinion, this was an A+ setup because of the things I mentioned. Now, the second setup, there's going to be a 30-minute fair value gap right here. And then 2-minute inversion fair value gap as our entry right here. Internal low resistance liquidity run, that's going to be these highs and these highs in here. Clear draw, data highs, same thing. Minimal chop, same thing. I'd say this one, maybe we could give it some chop right here instead of minimal chop. But regardless, I do believe it was a A+ setup just because of the things I mentioned. It's more than just a pattern as well. Like, over time, you're going to see, oh, this session, this time is going to work better than other times, but we don't want to overcomplicate it. This is a very simple rating system where we could just look at it, throw a A+, B+, whatever. But overall, you want to be honest in your journaling And this is really going to help you finding those A plus setups. Everybody talks about this high probability setup. This setup is better than this other setup. But most of the time, unless you're tracking it, like how are you actually defining it? How are you going to write that down in your journal? Are you just going to call any setup A plus, or are you going to have a system behind it so that you could be consistent and repetitive on how you're grading these things? You can't just assume what it is.